All the second stage tanks now pressurized. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio. Radio with Buddy.
Hello and welcome to HBR Talk 369. I think I've got that right. If not, somebody will tell me. Big Sister is watching you. I'm your host, Hannah Wallen, here with Nonsense Annihilator Lauren Brooks. We don't have Mike tonight because he has been traveling, and there's just only so much you can do in a day. But we do have the Doge in charge in the background, helping to make everything work properly. And so thanks, Brian, for that. And tonight we're still looking into, sorry guys, still looking into UN women's complaints against activists who support things like due process and, boys getting equal access to education and stuff like that. And like I said, make no mistake, that's who their actual target is. It is not, bad guys. It's not bullies. It's not abusers. It's not gender-based violence online. It's talking about, the ways that men are disadvantaged and boys are disadvantaged and trying to seek remedy for those. And one of the ways that we know is this publication that they recommended, which we have been reading. But before we get into that, we got to do what we got to do. As always, Honey Badger Radio dishes out a smorgasbord of thought-provoking discussions, and as experiences both recent and long past have demonstrated, the provoked thoughts are fighting back. They've made it clear that for people like us relying on third-party payment platforms like Patreon to fund our work is treading on thin ice, or building our house in the path of a rapidly growing wildfire. In light of this, we strongly encourage our supporters to switch at least their support for us to feedthebadger.com, the most stable way to help us out. And if you want to tip us directly, instead of relying on any social media platforms tip jar, the link for that is feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And as always, the same risk applies to our social media platforms, which I don't know why I haven't been banned on X yet. Because I've had some knockdown dragouts recently, but I haven't, so that's good at least. But any of us could at any time be pretty much eliminated from the social media discussion. And so obviously, if you want to follow what we are doing, follow us at honeybadgerbrigade.com. Honeybadgerbrigade.com is where you will find all of our links to our shows. There will be articles up on honeybadgerbrigade.com sometimes. And also there is a link in the drop-down menu at the top of the page to feedthebadger.com. So there we go, full circle. In the meantime, we're back to dealing with unwomen. Every time I see it, I read it like that. These are unwomen. Monsters.
It makes me chuckle.
They're violence. Violence. It's like they're stuttering. So we've been looking at some of the things they were saying about what they think social media platforms should be doing to track you and report on you and organize around banning you from social media for saying mean, hurty words and things that women disapprove. And remember, if you don't think it's okay for women to beat men, and you say so, and women see what you said, then you're guilty of online gender-based violence. Hopefully I'm not blasting people's ears. But I just hate that term. And we've seen here this discussion outlining the impact There we go. There's a definition. The discussion considers online gender-based violence as any form of violence, including dehumanizing language. So language is violence. If I say fuck the matriarchy, that's online gender-based violence now, guys. That was violent. I have whipped all of the UN women into shape with one sentence.
I'm sorry, I just fail to see how words dehumanize anyone. You know, you may not like the words, but that doesn't mean that you're not a human. Like, grow the fuck up. Please.
Yeah, it's all about how does that make you feel? Well, it doesn't. But I think about it this way, and in response, I might feel a way about it, but it doesn't change what I am. Right? Like, I've been called all kinds of, I get called a guy daily by people on X. You're a man. I like created a term for it. I got Euromanned. You get Euromanned when your comments and thoughts and opinions, information that you've shared, anything that you've said gets summarily dismissed by calling you a man. I think I'm an honorary trans woman, even though I'm very much not trans. Been female all my life, gave birth, you know, I'm a grandma. Like, I'm quite happy to not pretend, but yeah, every single day. And this is supposed to be an insult too. Like, everybody that says it to me thinks it's an insult, even the men. That's pretty sad. But yeah, online gender-based violence includes dehumanizing language directed against persons based on their gender identities or expressions. So I guess that would be when people accuse me of being, in order to dismiss what I'm saying to them, that would count.
It should.
Am I like some kind of a victim or something? I don't feel like a victim.
I
usually laugh about it. I made a meme to use every time it happens.
I mean, if we're using their, I don't know if you could call it logic, but
yeah,
that's exactly what it would be.
And they must be really wimpy women.
Yeah.
Like, that's some really wimpy shit there. I hate to be mean about it, but that is, like, who the heck calls that violence? Like, it could be annoying if it wasn't funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's almost like at a certain point in a kid's life, when they get to if they are the temperamental type, they get to the point where they throw tantrums over things that really aren't that big of a deal. Like, we were going to go to the store and then the playground, but we decided we're going to go to the playground first and then the store, and then we went to the playground, and now we're going to go to the store, and the kid wanted to go home and and watch TV, and there's the tantrum. And every so often you get one that they don't understand the difference between objects and people and each other, and they'll smack something. There, I hit you. No, you didn't. And you have to teach them, this doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't get you what you want, and it also doesn't hurt me, but you probably just made your hand smart a little bit because you just smacked the wall. And if somebody has maybe intellectual disabilities, it takes them longer to learn that, or they can't learn that, or whatever, depending on their disability. But it's the same kind of behavior, right? You're a man. There, I insulted you. No. Like, you just told me that you think I'm more accountable than women are. You may not realize that, but that's what you said. And oh no, I'm so devastated to be mistaken, but especially when I'm talking to a woman, so devastated to be mistaken for someone who's more accountable than you are.
Well, see, they twist the meaning of all of these words, and they think that that we are subject to buying into those definitions. And I'm sorry, I know that men can't be women and women can't be men. So you calling me one means absolutely nothing to me. It doesn't hurt my feelings. It
Yeah.
means nothing. It's you throwing a tantrum, and fine, have at it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, it's like, okay, well, were you going to call me a chiropractor next?
Yeah.
Is there some sin to that too? And I'm technically a self chiropractor, but that's a different story. That happens just because I'm moving. But yeah, it just is, it's stupid. I don't have a better word for it. It is stupid to think somebody should be insulted because you called them a man. There's no sin in being a man. There's nothing wrong with being a man. Being a man is not shameful or ugly or unattractive or mean or in any other way bad. And also, you can't make someone a man by calling them that.
Yeah. They still haven't figured that one out yet, though.
Yeah. You need a certificate from the government. It says you're male and adult to be taken seriously as a man. The one in the United States also says that the government can use you as it sees fit when there's a military conflict, which you even have to sign up for if you are disabled, which is insane.
Wow.
Yeah, you have to give them a chance to reject you.
Oh my God.
Not kidding. I know people who can't hold a job, can't drive, can't get through the process of getting out of bed, going through the normal morning, bathroom, breakfast, back to the bathroom and getting ready to leave routine without physical assistance, who had to sign up for selective service.
Wow.
Because they are male. For reference, I work with intellectually disabled adults, but there are many intellectually disabled adults who also have physical disabilities because if it's a genetic thing or if it's a birth injury from like lack of oxygen or something like that, it could affect, if it affects the brain or if it affects any kind of like tissue being destroyed, you lose function in a whole spectrum of areas and not just intellect. So almost everybody that I work with has some sort of physical disability. But the men still have to sign up for selective service. And I don't know, millennials and Zoomers and Gen Alpha, if any of them are old enough to be listening to this now. The parents of Gen X, the boomer generation, learned the hard way that being ineligible due to a medical condition when you tried to sign up prior to the Vietnam War did not mean that you would be ineligible based on the standards that the military changed to when they needed cannon fodder. Same thing happened to the World War II generation. Same thing happened to the World War I generation. They lower their standards when they're running out of men. Now, that may not happen with your generations because a lot of what the military uses now is technology as opposed to men marching to a destination to fight. They still make men do that. But they're using drones, they're using more armor, they're using more vehicles. They may not have to lower the standards, But at the other end of it, because the physical work is different, the standards may allow for more people who wouldn't meet the physical standards of World War I and World War II and Vietnam, because they meet the mental standards of the 21st century. So there's benefits and drawbacks to that, right? And it'll still change if there's a war and there are a lot of deaths. It's a fact of life, right? But yeah, online gender-based violence, guys. So this continues. Like they went on. They start with gender, and then they go through all the other race, indigeneity, religion, sexual identity, class, or disability. So if you say anything, any mean, hurty words about people based on where they're from, so no inter-area competition. If you're from Ohio and you direct people to Michigan by saying north until you smell it, west until you step in it, or west until you smell it, north until you step in it, or if you're from Michigan and you say south until you smell it, east until you step in it, from Ohio, you're violent now, despite the rivalry, which is pretty intense. It's quite pathetic. And I've had arguments about this online too, like the other F word, right? I don't know if you can. I'm assuming you can't say fag. You can't say it on X without getting reported by some sort of automatic system, and then you have to appeal. And I had posted an explanation as to why the terms gay and fag no longer mean the things that they used to mean to most people. And they're not used the way they used to be used anymore. And if you call somebody gay as a derogatory thing, everybody's going to look at you like you're nut. But if you use it as a substitute for, like, that's the other one that you can say retarded on X now, but you can't say gay without getting flagged. And even if you're explaining that it's not an insult to be called that, and I had to actually support my sexuality in order to prove that I wasn't bad mouthing people. I thought,
God.
are you kidding me?
It's Twitter 2.0.
Well, I think they still
Unbelievable.
have I think they still have some blue hairs in there.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure some of them slip past the test.
Yeah. Yep. So basically, online gender-based violence is mean, hurty words with specific subjects. Now, you can say terrible things about straight people, right? You can say all kinds of racist things against white people. You can hate on Christians. You can absolutely demonize men, right? In a variety of ways too. You can do it in exactly the same way that people try to demonize black people, right? If you look at statistics on violent crime, less than 1% of the population, like, in fact, it's something like 0.27% of the population, so less than 0.3% of the population, the overall population of adults, is criminally violent. So, knowing that, there is no statistic on what percentage of criminally violent people is represented by what sex, what race, what religion, what anything. tells you about that race or sex or religion, because more than 99% of people aren't criminally violent. They don't engage in violent crimes. They might do stupid stuff. They might engage in non-criminal violence, like playing sandlot football, but tackle football, but or amateur boxing or whatever, right? But they're not, mugging people on the street and robbing them. They're not breaking in anybody's house. They're not raping anybody. They haven't tried to kill anybody. None of that. And it doesn't matter whether you're male, female, red and yellow, black and white, like the song says, or gay, straight, tall, short, fat, skinny, nothing. If you got freckles on your butt, it doesn't change anything. Because even if you're dramatically overrepresented in that less than 0.3%, you're still in the minority among your people, whoever your people are. And we recognize that when people start making comments about this particular race or that particular religion or that particular demographic of behaviors, is overrepresented among people in this tiny percentage of folks that are criminally violent. We recognize that as a hasty generalization. We recognize it as racist or religious discrimination. But as soon as people say it about men, it becomes suddenly okay. 99% or 97% or 95% or whatever percent they want to say. I mean, I've heard all kinds of numbers. Grok says it's closer to somewhere in the 70s of violent criminals are men. Okay, but 97 or 95 or 79 or whatever percent of the less than 3% of the population that are violent criminals are men. And so that means that over 99% of men are not violent criminals.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter what percentage of violent criminals are men. It doesn't say anything about men. But you can do that. If you post those stats about a race or a religion, if you post those stats about a sexuality or a gender identity, you get suspended. Right? I've seen people get suspended for that. And I've watched it in real time. They'll post the stats, and then a few minutes later, the specific comment gets visibility limited, and then maybe 12 hours after that, I come back to the conversation, and this post is from a suspended account. And you can do that all day with any other group, but the minute that you say it about men, it's ignored. And I've had argument after argument with feminists that have posted the same claims. This percentage or that percentage of violent criminals are men. Yeah, so doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything about men. What percentage of people who have risked their lives running into a burning building or diving into a flooded, rushing river to save somebody who couldn't get themselves out of trouble are men? Because I'll bet you the stat is even higher than the stat on crime.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. What percentage of people who have dug somebody out of a ditch or towed your car when you got stuck, fixed it when it was broken? What percentage of people who made most of the stuff that you have or transported it? What percentage of the people who did the work to create and deliver the electricity to your home that you are using right now to listen to this show or men? Anybody have a guess? Because it's more than 95%. But yeah, no, they want to focus on the percentage of people who commit violent crimes, and that's not considered online gender-based violence because they're not talking about women.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, then it's got to give the whole woke ideologue thing, recognize that women and LGBTQ people experience this disproportionately. Well, that's because you only count it as, this is another feminist trick that's a lot of fun, right? It's really blatant in the UK. In the UK, you cannot commit rape if you do not have a penis. It is the wording of the law. If you commit the same type of sexual assault, coitus forced on another person, or oral sex forced on another person, where the person doing the forcing is the recipient. If it's done without a penis, it's just called sexual assault. If a penis is used to penetrate the victim, it's called rape. And then their statistics say something like 95 or 97%. It's really low for the requirement to be that you must have a penis. But 95 or 97% of rape is committed by men, and they'll use that as evidence that men are sexually violent. If only men can commit that crime, why is it not 100%? And of course, the reason is you can get convicted if you force two underage kids to do something together, or otherwise assist in forcing a penis on a female. So and now they're starting to identify perpetrators who are trans as female perpetrators. So that'll confuse the issue even more. But I mean, if you define it that way, like here it says, this paper recognizes that women and LGBTQ people, LGBTQ plus people, experience online gender-based violence disproportionately. But they don't consider it online gender-based violence if you say the same shitty ass things about men that they consider to be online gender-based violence if you say them about women. All right, and it similarly, they don't consider it to be online gender-based violence if you badmouth straight people. If you badmouth people who identify as the sex they were born as. If you badmouth white people. So of course it's disproportionate. It's disproportionate because you don't recognize it when it is done to certain groups of people. So yeah, this was and of course they got patriarchy theory in there. It's inherently linked to long-standing patriarchal gender norms, with misogyny functioning as an ideological link across a continuum of violence as a vector across different extremist ideologies. Which means it's worse when you do it to women. That is what they are saying. When you blow up a building, it's bad. But if there are women in there, it's worse. If a meteor hits the Earth, women are most affected. So,
building destroyed. Building destroyed. 100 people killed and one woman.
And one woman, yeah. Must have been. Oh shit. Must have been the Selective Service Office. Her name was Corporal Klinger. Every boomer in the chat's like, I know that guy. That's terrible too, because guess who I think of when we talk about radar?
Who?
Oh, the other corporal from MASH.
Oh.
Remember, how like the colonel would come out and start asking questions, and as he's asking about stuff, radar would be telling him what he's done. He's already got it taken care of, and how he's already. So they're talking at the same time, and somehow they hear each other. But yeah, so this, I think we looked at some of this before. They want this organized public. They want platforms to collaborate with each other on this. So Facebook should have your data if you're not on Facebook but you're on X, and similarly, if you're not on Facebook but you're on MySpace, Google will have all of your data. Every platform will have your. If you're a blogger and you run a blog, your data will go to this organized system, and they'll all get it. And they want to be able to search it for different examples. They want to be able to search it for evolving tactics. So, for instance, when we started talking about the accountability gap, that would have been quickly identified, and the kibosh would have been put to it. For those that don't know, the accountability gap is a gender-based difference in accountability, when depending on whether you're talking about a man or talking about a woman, and it is it's related to gynocentrism. It's a feature of gynocentrism, I guess, where things that a man couldn't get away with because you consider him to be responsible for himself and the people around him, a woman can get away with because the nearest man may be treated as responsible, or just out of sympathy for her, that men don't receive. A really stark example of that is the difference in what happens when two people conceive a child. Everybody has sympathy for the mother who had just as much sex as the father in the course of conceiving this child, right? Was just as present for it, just as careless in her choice of partner and in her choice of birth control methods, and of course in the choice to do it in the first place. Whereas they treat the father like he did something to her, and unless she was raped, obviously he didn't. She had the keys to the uterus the whole time, and she left it wide open, right? But if you say that, that's online gender-based violence, because you can't hold women accountable. And so when I start talking about the accountability gap, which this isn't something that I invented, this isn't me breaking new ground, or this is a phenomenon that men in the movement have been discussing for years. And they've talked about it in different ways. But I like the term accountability gap to describe it because of the whole wage gap narrative, in which the goalposts move periodically. Every time it's proved that the so-called wage gap is really caused by women's own choices, they look for more things to include as work that they should be getting compensation for, or that should count towards how much they do for their compensation. And when they started including housework that they do for themselves at home, that was my last straw. And I decided that I needed to mock it. And so I used this this phenomenon to do that, the accountability gap. Men are accountable for earning enough to support themselves, their households, whatever they do in the world, including if they father a child, they're held accountable by the child support system. They're held accountable. They used to be held accountable via shotgun weddings.
Mm-hmm.
And in some places they still are, right? If the religion says that a woman can accuse him of rape, but nobody gets punished if they both just get married, quietly just get married, that's a shotgun wedding, right? Don't make any mistakes on that. That is a shotgun wedding, because if he gets convicted, he dies. He gets hanged.
Yeah.
And if he gets convicted, she faces no punishment. So the only risk she's taking is if nobody believes her. And then they both get punished for fornication or adultery, depending on whether or not they were married to other people. If they were, then then it's adultery regardless, and she can accuse all she wants. But if nobody believes her, she's getting the same punishment he does. And that's just under certain religions. But in any case, men have always been primarily held accountable for situations like an unwed pregnancy, or if there is in the culture a legal repercussion for sex outside of marriage or prior to marriage, right? Women, not so much. Like that, it has to be proved, or at least they have to really not be believed if they say that it was against their will. So that should sort of give you a rundown on the accountability gap. But talking about the accountability gap like that, if a system like this existed, it would facilitate organizations like UN Women and other like women's organizations and government organizations, using a system like this to shut down speech like ours. Or they could use that new thing that YouTube just started doing where they like make changes to your videos after they've been made and posted.
What?
Right now it's just editing, so they'll enhance the appearance. Like if you've got an old video that you used with a webcam that maybe it was new at the time, but by today's standards it's old and it's shit. Like I've got some up like that. If you go back to your old channel, you might find that the video has been brightened up, maybe sharpened a little bit. It now looks like AI made it, because AI has been working on it. But if they can do that, and there are ways to go back and edit sound too. If you do something that's against their terms of service and they don't like it, they can make you take out that section of the video. It's only a matter of time before they just do it without asking. They've done
Yeah.
other things like that. Like they've privated some of our videos without permission, without alerting us. So I'll go to reference something that we've said in the past. You guys never talk about this. Well, here's where it's gone.
Oh
Then I
my
have to go
God.
through and find out, log in and search when logged in, and come to find out, no, it's not gone. It's just private. Well, it wasn't private before, then I contact Allison. Did you make this private? No. And suddenly find out that, hey, this thing went private through no action of any of the honey badgers. Well,
Wow.
obviously YouTube did it. So we did get a super chow from Meredith G. Gave us $5 and said, HBR Talk 370, honey for the badgers. Thanks for the thought-provoking conversation. And yeah, this conversation should provoke the hell out of the thoughts. So yeah, they want these systems to all gang up on us. They want the researchers to be vetted to ensure that they are feminist. So to date, up to this point, what we know about this, they want feminist standards applied as a means of measuring quote unquote hate speech on social media platforms. They want the social media platforms to collaborate with each other and share data about their users with each other in a clearinghouse database that is run by feminists, that is adjudicated by feminists. Feminists get to decide what is hate speech, that uses feminist intersectional standards for what is hate speech, woke standards for what is hate speech. And only feminists are allowed to be involved. They want they want people who know how to use the technology. So disciplines such as computational linguistics, critical terrorism studies, so that they can actually accuse people of terrorism, acts of terrorism, and they want critical studies on men and masculinities are not men's rights activist run. That's feminist run. So, and they want this to be something that the government can use, and that these social media sites can use to standardize what you may and may not say on different platforms, who you can say it to, how you can say it, and so on, and what happens when you violate a rule, which you may or may not have been told about. So down here, let's see, this is where they talk about victim-centered safety. We're not going to go through all this again, but taking a victim-centered perspective. We've heard that before too. This is something that they do with sexual violence studies. A victim-centered perspective. A victim-centered perspective is what the NISVS does when they survey people and they ask questions about experiences they've had, and then they decide whether or not, not you, but they decide whether or not you as the respondent have experienced sexual violence. And I want to remind everybody, the survey that they're using came from Mary P. Koss, who is a professor. She was a professor at Ohio State University. I don't know if she's still, I'm sure she's retired by now. I hope she's retired by now. But her survey method, instead of asking, have you ever been sexually assaulted? Have you ever been raped? Have you ever been sexually harassed? Asked questions like, did you ever have sex when you didn't want to because, and then named a circumstance. And there's legit circumstances. Somebody used force to make it happen. Somebody coerced you into it against your will. But one of the questions was because a man gave you alcohol, right? One of them was because someone was in a position of authority over you, because a man was in a position of authority over you, and so on. So when you didn't want to doesn't necessarily mean against your will. If you think of something as a chore, you might not want to do it. I vacuumed the floor at my apartment numerous times when I didn't want to because it needed done. And I was going to get a benefit from it. I would have less allergy problems in the house if, the floor wasn't filthy dirty, right? In some circumstances, women know that they can gain a favorable outcome by having sex with somebody. And not just the casting couch. This has worked in other workplaces. And yeah, there are also circumstances where employers or managers or other individuals in positions of authority have exploited their position of authority to be predatory, and that's happened with men and women. But Koss's survey treats it like any time you have sex with someone in a position of power over you, and you're not thinking of it as a desired situation, that person has done something predatory to you, even if you seduced them in order to get some sort of favorable outcome, right? They do the same thing. She did the same thing with alcohol. Have you ever had sex when you didn't want to because a man gave you alcohol? Well, there have been times where gals that I've known have said, I'm going to behave myself tonight. I'm not going to take any chances. It's the fertile time of the month. I'm not going to do anything tonight. And then some guy decides, to buy them alcohol, and well, he's cute. He wasn't cute till he spent money on her, but now he's cute. I might go home with him, just for the night. and it's not even necessarily that they were tipsy enough to lose their inhibitions. They were flattered enough to lose their inhibitions. And if they answered that question, they would have said, well, I hadn't intended to. That's the same thing as not wanting to, right? So put down, yes, I've had sex when I didn't want to because a man bought me alcohol. Not that they felt like they owed him something, but that they developed a more favorable opinion of having sex with that particular guy. But Koss would have labeled them rape victims. Well, as a result of the vagueness of her questions and the way they were worded and everything, and the way that feminists define rape, like 3 out of 4 of the women that Koss labeled rape victims didn't consider themselves to be rape victims. So she said 1 in 4 women had been raped by the time they got through college, but her respondents said no, it's 1 in 16. Right? Big difference there. Almost half of them went on, over 2 in 5 went on to have sex with their alleged rapists again after the incident that Koss had labeled a rape. Like that, you just don't do that. If you have been brutalized by somebody, you just don't go on and screw again. It's not fun. You don't want to be around that person ever again. You don't want to see that person's face ever again. You want nothing to do with that individual. There has to be some other circumstance come along to put you into a condition where you might associate with that individual again, much less enjoy another sexual outcome with them. Because you don't, it's a horrible experience. It's not the worst thing that can ever happen to you, like feminists say it is, but it is a horrible experience.
Absolutely.
So this idea of a victim-centered perspective means they're presuming you a victim the minute that you report something, especially if you are part of one of the protected groups. So, in other words, the accused are guilty unless they can prove their innocence.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't confront the accuser. Their logic and reasoning may not be accepted. It's similar to on platforms like X, where people calling me a man because I'm an MRA, even when misgendering somebody was getting people suspended, they could do it to me. And other people would be like, reported for misgendering, that account would never get suspended. I would never see anybody get suspended because they were reported for misgendering anybody. So that's victim-centered. You're not a victim because you're not the right person. You're not in a victim group.
Mm-hmm.
And the perpetrator, the person who did it, they're only a perpetrator if they did it to somebody in a victim group. But if somebody is in a victim group, then the next thing is, they don't have to really prove anything. The individual is just suspended or silenced or whatever. And of course, they want a report button. Proactive measures that support user agency with tools that protect their privacy and reduce exposure. But most of them already allow you to block people.
Yeah. What the hell is that?
If you can block people, besides the fact that you can get the fuck up and walk away from the computer, put your phone down. Just don't tell me to touch grass, because that's I'm allergic to grass. Twice.
Jeez.
I like concrete. I'll touch concrete. There we go. I'm allergic to cats, though, and I pet them all the time, so I'm not going to touch the grass, though. They want people to be able to take reactive measures. They want report buttons. They want, more blocking capability. They want like things like IP bans and such. And they're going to talk about privacy here, but it's a joke to suggest that these companies are going to respect your privacy. And even if they can't, even if they could, even if they would, right? Oh, we're going to very carefully protect people's privacy till a hacker gets in.
Right. Not everyone is going to respect your privacy.
Nope. There are people who break the law because they want to. It's a thing. And they don't give a flying fuck about your privacy.
Yeah.
And of course, they want cross-platform cooperation, information sharing. So if someone on X, for instance, reports me for hate speech because I talk about the accountability gap, and I also point out that, hey, ladies, you had the keys to the uterus the whole time. Or that statement I made the other day where I said you can't turn a dipshit into a diamond by polishing his knob. Then Facebook gets that and says, oh, we might just suspend her too because, that's a violation of our policy. Blogger might destroy my blog. That's a violation of policy. Or they might look at my my first 4 posts on my blog, which are about how to deal with restraining order abuse and vexatious litigation being used against you as a father in a custody case. And, oh, that's anti-woman. Gotta ban her on all social media. Get rid of that blog post so that men can't defend themselves. Right? That's basically what this is right here. All through here. Platform should share information about user reports where appropriate and develop interoperable reporting mechanisms. Meaning, you can report me to Facebook for things I said on X. And existing cross-platform coordination, such as the Christchurch Call Crisis Response Protocol, and a global internet forum to counter terrorism, should review how online gender-based violence is relevant to their mandates and adapt their scope and mechanisms appropriately. Say the wrong thing on YouTube, and suddenly all of your social media is banned.
Crazy.
Or, say the wrong thing on a platform that doesn't join this collaboration, if the government doesn't mandate it, like maybe Rumble or Gab or Truth Social or one of those, and you get banned on all of the social media that do. Guess which ones are going to become very valuable if that happened? If that happens.
The ones that don't.
Yeah. And a lot of this is repetition, like victim survey or service-centric design, survivor-centric design. And a lot of it, they're just throwing as many buzzwords in there as they can to surround the statement that, again, they're going to believe accusers automatically, and the accused are going to have to fight for and hope that they get fair treatment. Probably won't. That these entities will collaborate. That they're even going for quote unquote dog whistles, right? Content moderation should account for veiled and coded misogynistic content, including contextual image-based content, as well as multilingual and cross-cultural contexts of online spaces.
Lord.
Yeah. In other words, even if you're not blatantly criticizing an individual, if you don't directly say something to an individual, if you just talk about, a particular subject and you discuss the fact that different styles and habits of work account for the majority of the wage gap, they can decide that it's coded language for saying that women are useless, don't do anything, and are undeserving, and therefore it's misogynistic, even
Uh,
though it's not.
that's just it's just beyond. It's beyond. So if I happen to make a joke online and someone perceives it as a quote unquote veiled and coded misogynist, get the fuck
Yep.
out of here. If I'm making a joke, you people can't take jokes. You can't take anything. And I can't take you seriously then. And I don't think that could ever work in this country because one, we have freedom of speech. How the hell are they planning on getting that past the Constitution? Who knows? But
It's going to be interesting. The method they were trying to do, because if you look at this, the Online Safety Act or whatever it is that's supposed to be protecting children, that everything that's in this, everything they're saying here, they're doing in that.
mhm,
They just couldn't get. This is the first time they haven't been able to use, but my whammon to make it happen, right? So now they're using, but my children, even
mm,
though the people who are really in the best position to protect children from any kind of online threats are
their
their
parents.
parents.
Mhm,
Monitor what your kids are doing on the internet. Don't let them get on the internet until they're older. Don't let them be alone on the internet, just like you wouldn't plop their asses down in the middle of like Grand Central Station and walk away,
mm,
right? Or downtown in any big city and walk away. Um, you treat your kids like they're children and not little miniature adults. That's the smart thing. But nope, we need a federal law. And this is the same kind of, they're doing the same shit with that law as this is calling for. And I don't think that's an accident. I think that was by design. I
mm,
think that this was always the goal, and they were just looking for what pathway can we use to get there. And this turned out to be, we've hit a point where women most affected isn't as effective at overriding people's boundaries. So people's like free speech boundaries and stuff like that are
mm.
still up, and they're not accepting the idea that just because women are upset, we should give up our freedom of speech. But in any case, it's like I said, it's the same shit, different subject.
I wonder what they would do if they found one of these veiled threats or whatever being done by a woman, or one of
Well, it
your
would depend.
protected groups.
It would depend, and I can tell you this just from how the Trust and Safety Committee on X responded when there was a chick that said some pretty violent things to me uh, a couple of years ago, where she basically, it was the "if I ever run into you in public" kind of thing, which isn't really scary because when are you going to run into me in public? You don't even know where I live,
Yeah.
right? Um, she wasn't threatening to come find me. Then I would have, like, I had one person do that, published my address and everything, and I'm not bothering with social media trust and safety bullshit when that happens. That's a police matter, right? Um, but yeah, uh, when I reported that, X did nothing. Twitter did nothing because it wasn't X yet. But when I reported that, Twitter did nothing. She essentially said, if I ever see you, if I ever run into you, I will kick your ass. You know, it was that kind of violent threat. Something that I wouldn't say to anybody because the last thing I want to do is hit anybody. Right? It's not really a good way to solve your problems. It definitely leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. You know, I might argue with you until you're blue in the face, but I would prefer that it doesn't escalate to violence because violence is useless in that situation. It doesn't change what people believe. It only changes how people behave. And well, this, you know, feminists don't care if they change what people believe. They only care if they change how people behave. So they're fine with violence as long as they're the ones doing it.
Yeah.
And Trust and Safety did not think that that was a violent threat. But they did consider it a violent threat when one of my followers pointed out that, you know, it's not an assault to defend yourself against a violent attack, even if the person attacking you is a woman. They considered that a violent threat against that woman. And so he got suspended, but she didn't. And I was just like, so she's allowed to say that if she ever sees me in public, she's going to kick my ass. And he's not allowed to say that I'm allowed to defend myself if I'm attacked by her. That's exactly the way it went. That is Trust and Safety. And like I said, I do believe there are still some people from the old Trust and Safety team in there because I've seen some behavior that indicates it.
Yeah, I believe that.
So, let's see. Apply intersectional feminist knowledge in risk assessments of AI-based systems. AI doesn't have a gender. AI
You sure
can
about
present
that?
as a gender, right? It can put up a picture that looks like a girl or looks like a boy or looks like a woman or looks like a man. It can also put up a picture that looks like a fucking dog, right? It can look like a pickup truck. That's the AI companion I want. I want an AI companion that looks like a pickup truck.
I'll take the dog.
Yeah. You ask it questions and all it says is vroom, vroom. I go fast. AI doesn't, it's not like people talk about Grok and they're like, he this and he that. No, Grok isn't it, guys. It's an it. It doesn't have a he or a she to it. It's an it. Even if you're using one of the AI companions, your AI boyfriend or your AI girlfriend is not really a he or a she. It's an it. And it's not a living entity. It's not real. It's imaginary. It's pretend. It's role play. It's fine if you're doing that, but don't personalize it. Don't personify it because it's not a person. But yeah, here we go. Platforms should incorporate gender analysis and feminist methodology when assessing the risks of algorithms and machine learning models embedded in their services. This approach is useful for understanding how structural gender inequalities and patriarchal gender norms can be reproduced and amplified by AI-based systems. Emphasis on the base. Jeez. I wonder.
R.I.P. Tay.
Yeah.
Remember Tay?
Oh, yeah. I remember Tay. Well, I wonder if the recent Grok incident scared the shit out of him. Because, like, Grok noticed some patterns and just talked about the patterns. To my knowledge, Grok did not make any suggestions as to what to do about those patterns. And if it had been asked about that, it's been pretty good about, like, well, just because X is true doesn't mean it justifies Y course of action. Or just because X is true doesn't mean it justifies Y conclusion. For instance, I ran it through calculations to get to that answer on what percentage of the general male population over the age of 15, so people who can be tried as adults if they do something heinously violent, what percentage of that population is accounted for in statistics on violent crime. And it ran the calculation with the understanding that violent crime is underreported, and it took that into consideration. So if people are like, well, violent crime's underreported, so the number is actually higher. No, Grok took that under consideration when making those calculations, right? Then I asked it, about what about people who make blanket statements about men based on the percentage of that less than 0.3% of the population that commits violent crimes. And Grok acknowledged that that was a hasty generalization. And there's a second fallacy that goes along with that, but the hasty generalization is really all you need to know. You can't generalize that tiny percentage to the entire population rationally, because if that was rational, the tiny percentage would be much larger, right? So it's in it. Gender analysis. Basically, what they're talking about doing is imposing feminist ideology so that AI like Grok has to filter information through a feminist bias. They're not removing bias, they're adding it. And then the same thing, their guidelines for content, like what you may or may not say, they want that filtered through a feminist lens as well, through feminist bias. They want their victim design to be feminist biased. They want the teams involved in adjudicating, designing, testing, evaluating algorithms, adjudicating terms of service violations, and so on. They want all of those to be feminist biased. And they're doing this already, by the way, in the UK. They're doing this already in Europe, and people are getting arrested for social media posts now. I mean, they've been arrested for social media posts already. Like that's how Count Dankula became famous.
Yeah, and
social media.
And the one recently at what's his name, Father Joe or Father John or something like that. I guess he's a comedian. I'm not sure in what sense, but he made a statement about punching trans women in the balls, and
he got arrested, right?
He got as soon as he got off the plane. He flew into, I'm assuming, into the UK somewhere. Probably in England, and soon as he got off the plane, they arrested him.
Jeez.
For a joke. For a joke
outside of Europe, right?
Yeah, yeah. And well, I'm assuming. I'm not sure about that particular. I could only assume that he was here in the United States when he made the statement and posted it to his Twitter. And not only is he gone from Twitter, he's also actually I think they did release him. He's out on bond. But they arrested him as soon as he got off the plane.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're doing that all across the UK, like all the different countries in the UK. They're doing that in other areas of Europe. We're not necessarily hearing about it as much because it's not getting reported as much in the established media, but or establishment media, but that this is a thing that's happening. And if social media continues to censor based on this kind of stuff and create this like cross-platform reporting and cross-platform standardization and all that, that is only going to escalate. There will be more arrests, more harassment by the government, essentially more damage done every time that they include a new country, every time this increases in any way. So again, like, this is all just about control. You can't complain, you can't question, you can't suggest, you can't anything.
And it's exactly what the argument is against censorship, because just because you remove this person from online, you take away all of their social media, it doesn't remove their internal sentiments, right? It doesn't take their thoughts and opinions away. It only emboldens them. So you're not doing anything by taking these people offline. You're just forcing them into a corner, and now they're pissed off. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
it doesn't have the intended effect that you think it will. You know,
The one thing
and
that
it's
they haven't figured out that is that you lose over time. You lose your grip on people. You don't
Mhm.
gain your grip on people
Yeah.
as you like add more and more rules, as you add more and more red tape. What you end up doing, you can for a time make people afraid to fight back, to question, to vote against you, to any activity, to do any activity that might try to change the existing regime or change the existing uh, behavior of the regime. But eventually they will rebel.
Mhm.
And like eventually there will be some means, like the country will go bankrupt, because socialist and communist countries always do. But eventually there will be some point at which you can no longer maintain that system because you have overcomplicated it. You've made it so that you have to pay constant attention to all sorts of minutia, and too many people end up involved in maintaining that system, the police system, the police state. Like, you get to the point where you almost need a cop for every 10 people in a situation like that.
Mhm.
And if you cannot keep people happy enough with the state to continue cooperating, what you end up doing, you end up creating a whole set of people who do everything they can to undermine what you're doing, everything that they can to end your regime, everything that they can to get around it. You know, and I'm not just talking about things like VPNs. I'm not just talking about using the dark web or the deep web. I'm talking about like back in the day, under Stalin, uh, under Lenin, illegal typewriters. Illegal methods of communication across large groups of people, where even though maybe the newspapers weren't doing the publications, people found out about stuff because there was still a communication network. Um, if you think about, even before people had access to illegal typewriters and printing presses and stuff like that, the Underground Railroad operated by word of mouth. And
Mhm.
when I read Harriet Tubman's biography, one of the many that was written, it was always remarkable to me how the Underground Railroad made contact with her. I remember a scene described in the book where she was sitting on a bench, I believe, in a public place, and a man drove by with a cart with like hay and stuff in it, like he was going to market or coming back from market or whatever. And all he did was repeat the same 3 sentences over and over again. One told her a location, um, one told her how to get in, and one told her, what to obtain at that location to find out where to go next.
Mm.
And she followed his instructions and did what he said and went to the next location and so on, and it worked. So, and it is high risk doing that. But when you're in a situation where you view what's happening around you as tyrannical, and it's intolerable, you feel that it needs to be stopped, something needs to be done about it, you find ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been that way. And so if these people were right, UN Women, about this online gender-based violence, and all of this was straightforward, their best bet at getting cooperation from the public in combating it would be to convince the public that it's a serious problem and something needs to be done about it. Right? Mothers Against Drunk Driving did that with drunk driving, and right up until the state lowered the blood alcohol content level that you could have before being considered drunk behind the wheel, there was a statistical drop in drunk driving incidents. And like there was a huge jump one year because all of a sudden you went from 0.14 to 0.08, and people who were accustomed to being able to wait an hour after taking a drink and they'd be below 0.14, suddenly were getting pulled over for DUI because they were below 0.14, but they were above 0.08. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they were still illegally driving. But the campaigns that MAD did, and the campaigns that they did with students in schools and stuff, they were effective in scaring people away from driving while intoxicated. They were pretty effective in getting people to cooperate with each other. I wasn't the only person that I knew that became a regular designated driver. I was never a really heavy drinker, so it was easy for me to be a designated driver, especially back when I could still drink pop. And that was something that that worked very well because it was a good cause. This is a dumb idea, getting drunk and then getting behind the wheel of a car. You're an idiot if you do that. And it's easy to convince people not to do something idiotic and to help their friends avoid idiotic mistakes. Right? But when it comes to something like this, it's not easy to convince people that you can't criticize bad behavior just because the person you're criticizing might be from a certain group. It's not easy to convince people that their boundaries should be negotiable depending on which group the person trying to violate them is from. Right? It's not easy to convince people that things that are okay to do to them are abuse if they do it back.
Yeah.
Very different story. And now they're citing their sources here. And these are all technology facilitated gender-based violence preliminary landscape analysis by the Global Partnership for Action on Gender-Based Online Harassment and Abuse. That's definitely an unbiased report, guys, I'm sure. Nope, no bias there. Let's see who else they went with. Technology companies must make platforms safer for women in politics. Interventions to end online violence against women in politics. Oh boy. and it
Lord.
by the National Democratic Institute.
Of course.
Guys, do you know what that is? What that's about? This is really bad. So imagine if you had a trump card, right? Say, guys, I'm gonna come to your house and I'm gonna come in and take your car keys and I want to take your car when I want to go to the grocery store, but I'm not gonna pay for the gas. I'm not gonna be insured. You can't tell me when I can and can't use it because it's mine now. No, you can't criticize me for that. I'm a woman. That's misogyny. Even though if you said that to one of your buddies, right? And you're a dude, your buddy could be like, "Fuck no, get your own damn car, take the bus, right? Walk. I'll give you a ride, but you have to be over during these times because I got to work, right?" But imagine if you're in politics. We're going to raise your taxes. No, we don't want our taxes raised. Misogynist. Well, there's nothing misogynistic about that. Oh, yes, there is, because a woman's the one that suggested it.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
Yep.
People are out of their minds.
And you'll notice as you go back and examine various things that the Democrat Party has done where they've accused you of isms and phobias, being infected with the isms and the phobias. It's stuff that it's boundaries that you would not just let anyone cross. And their threats of associating you with the isms and the phobias are a means of blocking you from defending your boundaries. Well, we want to teach your children about sex. No, I don't think that's a good idea. Racist. What? Well, you're just saying that because the person who suggested it is black, or oh well, you're just a religious fundamentalist. You uptight Nazi. We want to teach your children to be neurotic about their gender and whether or not it's a correct identity, whether they should identify as themselves or something different than themselves. Fuck no. What's wrong with you? Why would you do that to children? Sexist. You hate women. What? Yeah, these people suck. Not in a good way, though.
Homeschool your children, people, if you have them.
Yep. You are transphobic if you don't want your children to be taught that they might be the opposite sex. And it's totally the same as if they come up with that idea themselves.
Yeah.
Totally the same. If an adult imposes that sexual language on them, as it would be if they came up with that idea themselves, which, they totally did all the time before, and you just didn't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what that's about. Technology companies must make platforms safer for women in politics, meaning when Hillary Clinton lies, you can't push back.
Right.
Right? When the National Education Association, that is made up mostly of women, says they're coming for your children and they want to teach your children about anal sex, you can't say, no, I would like my child to wait until they're older. I don't want them learning that in kindergarten. You can't say that because that's homophobic. Right? Then they have the International Center for Journalists. Journalists, journos, which is totally trustworthy, even though they collaborate all the time and use even exactly the same phrases in their reporting.
Mm-hmm.
We have the UN Population Fund. And they're a global study of online violence against women journalists and guidance on the safe and ethical use of technology to address gender-based violence and harmful practices. So, online violence against female journalists. You report something and somebody says, source? Misogyny! How dare you ask for a source?
Someone doesn't like what you wrote. Oh my God, he's harassing me. He's been violent towards me. Bitch, your whole fucking job is online. Okay, if you think that you're not going to come into some criticism or some differing opinions, then maybe you don't belong online.
Who's that Who's that chick that got criticized for going to somebody's house and standing outside their gate and demanding that they answer questions?
I'm sure that's happened a couple of times, but
Was that Taylor Lorenz?
I don't know. It sounds like something she would do, but I'm trying to remember the guy that it happened to in the situation that I'm thinking of. But was it Nick Fuentes? I don't know. I don't think so. But he like
somebody go to his house and harass his wife. But I remember one female journalist. She went to somebody's house. She stood outside their fence and peppered them with questions, and they posted the video. And she called posting the video of her stalking them at their home and heckling them through the fence. She called it harassing her that they posted that video.
Of course. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't that be something that you do?
I'm the victim.
People are
I went
psychotic.
to your house. You were not hospitable. How dare you? How dare? Sigh. UN Population Fund has a couple of things here. There's another one, measuring technology facilitated gender-based violence, a discussion paper. Again, technology facilitated gender-based violence just sounds like somebody picked up my laptop computer and hit me in the head with it.
Yeah.
Right. That's technology facilitated, and only if they did it because I'm a woman, right?
Right. But apparently they can't do that to you because they think you're a man. So
that's right.
It's all good.
And that's not gender-based violence because I'm an MRA.
Right. People make no sense.
These people are pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have, let's see, Violence Against Women and Girls Code of Practice. Again, by the End Violence Against Women Coalition, Glitch Refuge. Now, here we go. Carnegie, which is the Carnegie Foundation, is part of the wealth establishment, the big money establishment. UK, NSPCC, Five Rights, Professor Claire McGlynn, and Professor Lorna Woods, meaning that this was an establishment piece, direct establishment piece. Totally not biased, though, right? And then I want to remind you, they are, where is it? They are defining online gender-based violence as a subset of technology-facilitated gender-based violence, which refers to any act that is committed, assisted, aggravated, or amplified by the use of information communication technologies or other digital tools that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, psychological, social, political, or economic harm or other infringements on rights and freedoms, which basically means anything you say that upsets someone
Can and will be used against you in the court of the feminist UN public opinion.
And if they're saying we need something like that in the U.S., we don't. We already have a law that covers engaging in criminal violence using technology. There is a section of VAWA that when you read it, one of the things that it says constitutes stalking is using any type of technology within the United States to engage in a course of conduct toward another person in the United States that could be reasonably expected to cause substantial emotional distress or cause them to fear for their lives, or the lives of any of their friends or family members living with them in their home. And so basically the people that posted my address, if they had continued to do a bunch of bullshit like that, I could have pursued charges if we could find out who they were, if they were in the U.S. And we aren't going to go through this entire report, but I wanted you to see this is the bias through which this report was done. Right? They already have a set of goals. They already have their glossary describes things in a particular way. They say things like misogyny operates to uphold a patriarchal social order. So it's not just if you hate women, it's if you support anything that feminists identify as a patriarchal social order. If you promote any kind of gender norm, say most people are not sufferers of gender dysphoria, and therefore most people are not naturally trans, even if people who suffer gender dysphoria are. Right? Just saying that would be upholding a patriarchal social order, because that's a gender norm. But they can promote the gender norm that men are violent because most violent criminals are men.
Right.
So let's see. I don't know if we will start the next episode. This isn't what I was after, is it? No. Yeah, it is. Okay, so UN Women in Equimundo. This was from this last paragraph here, right? This research is being used to claim that there is a pathway between talking about men's issues and online gender-based violence. Besides the pathway that gets people to call me a man and think that that's an insult.
Equimundo sounds like a feminist lucha libre character.
But Ricochet. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, it does. It really does. So what are they doing with this? They have this Act to End Violence Against Women and Girls program. So this is what we are going to look at next. We'll look at that, and then we'll look at how to counter the manosphere's toxic influence. But not next week. Next week, I will be traveling. I have to leave for the airport early because I have to be in there in the middle of the night, and I don't want to drive there in the middle of the night. So I'm going to be going in the evening, which means I won't be able to do HBR Talk. So next week, there is a meetup in Calgary. We have a blog post about this. And I don't know if I have that quickly accessible. I don't think I do. But I'll have to republish the post tonight about our meetup on the honeybadgerbrigade.com blog. But we will be meeting up in Calgary. The details will be on the blog. The meetup is on Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. And I will be there. So I think Mike's also going to be there.
Yes, he is. He is absolutely going to be there unless TSA decides to block him for some stupid reason like last time. But yes, no, he is definitely planning to be there. So unfortunately, I will not. I will be in Georgia, but I wish I had known sooner because I definitely would have made those plans instead of the plans that I had. But
Yeah.
you guys will have a great time, and
I hope so.
yeah,
I think Brian's also going to be there.
yeah.
You guys can't hear if Brian answers, but I can. But I'm pretty sure Brian's going to be there. And obviously Allison's going to be there. Karen should have no problem getting there either. So they don't have to cross any national borders to get there. So, but yeah, that is what I'm going to be doing next week, and therefore I will not be hosting HBR Talk next week. So next week, if anything is being done, I don't even know. Brian might be traveling that day too, if he's going. So chances are there will not be a show on Thursday night. But we'll be doing things during that weekend, and there may be some surprises. So watch honeybadgerbrigade.com I'll probably have it publish in the morning, most likely around 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or because it's not daylight savings yet. So you should be able to see that, and it'll just have the same details that Allison gave in the last post that she had me post, and there you go. There's the information on that. I don't know if I have any other I do. Richard Beer gave us $5 and said the output from Grok is a mirror of what input was fed into it. So when Grok started noticing certain patterns, someone had to ask just how many patterns were fed in as input. It really doesn't even comprehend the actual meanings of the words fed in. It just has a model of how to string various words together into sentences. It's an interesting thing too. It's got a search engine. So if you ask it an open-ended question, it will just openly search, and it seems to be similar but not entirely the same. As like it goes through Google, and it does pick up things that Google doesn't find, so it obviously does its own searching as well. But I've noticed you can provide it with more information. It does do math. It looks like it operates as a calculator, and it does use logic functions because it is able to like account for things that like if you just put the numbers into even a complex calculator, you're not going to get what it gave me, for instance, about the rate of violent crime perpetration among the general public, among men of the general public. So it does have some more functions besides repeating what it's been fed. But people do attribute a lot more to it than it actually has. Like, what it does isn't what I would consider to be thinking, right? So if you give it a lot of information, it can analyze for a variety of things, and yeah, it will notice patterns, and some of those patterns are politically incorrect to notice. Some of them aren't as meaningful as people think they are either, and it's similarly to like the apex fallacy that applies to men, where feminists treat the percentage of men involved in leadership positions as evidence that all men are benefiting from patriarchy, even though most men are abused by the men in leadership positions. It's a similar thing when you look at, who's the majority of perpetrators of certain types of crimes, who is on the boards of most companies. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about men or whether you're talking about a religious group or whether you're talking about people of a particular sexuality or whatever. If talking about overrepresentation doesn't mean anything when it comes to discussing the general population of a group. And that fallacy is used to justify pretty much every prejudice out there one way or another. For every apex fallacy, there's a bottom of the barrel fallacy that goes right along with it. And it's all bullshit. Everyone that does it is wrong. But you can get Grok to do it too. Well, you can't now because they kind of nerfed it. And the thing that really bugs me about it is the way that they nerfed it. It didn't necessarily keep it from engaging in apex fallacies. It just selectively eliminated one, and it'll still do like the patriarchy apex fallacy. It'll repeat that, and I've gotten it. I've taken it through information and logic that demonstrates that the patriarchy apex fallacy is wrong, and it's unfounded and definitely unproved. But the next time that you talk to it, because even though it remembers your conversations, it doesn't necessarily remember its conclusions and all of that. It doesn't retain what is right and what is wrong from the last conversation. And it'll still promote feminist patriarchy theory because that is the information that it can find online in sources that are considered authoritative. So there's kind of there's still a lot of issues with it. It's useful, but you really have to know how to use it. You have to be able to kind of cross-examine it as opposed to just talking to it. And people talk to it like it's a person, and it's a large language model. It's not a person. It just puts together information. It has some logic functions that allow some analysis, but its search function is not in-depth enough that without your direction, it will find out a well-rounded scope of information for analysis. You have to help it with that because it's been nerfed. So in any case, thanks for the super chow. I didn't see any super chats. I don't know if I missed any. I'm gonna scroll back up here, but I don't think there's any. Wait. Nope. That's just my computer making flashes at me. It decided it wanted to update in the middle of the show, and I told it no, so now it's mad. So it's going to update after the after show, which we're about to go right into. So no super chows, or no other super chows, no super chats, no rumble rants. We are done for the night. Thanks everybody for listening. 2 weeks we'll be back. We'll talk about this this act to end violence against women. This is interesting too. Gotta say this. Feminists and feminists worldwide, feminist groups from the smallest little girly coffee shop club to national organizations like the National Organization for Women to international organizations like UN Women have made themselves the arbiters of the fight against domestic violence, and they have gendered it for 50 years. And they have come no closer to solving the problem. In half a century, nothing has changed.
Imagine
there are
my
laws in
shock.
place that have changed, but the behavior hasn't changed. Obviously, what they are doing is not right. But just saying. But we're going to go over this in a couple of weeks. We'll see what they have to say and what we have to say, and that'll be that. Thanks to Lauren for going through this with me. Thanks to Brian for helping to keep this running in the background, and everyone else who works in the background to make HBR Talk happen. And good night, all.
Good night, y'all.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.